Hi everyone, it's Eli. You know how sometimes you stumble upon something truly game-changing in healthcare? Well, I found it. KinetiSense. This cutting-edge motion capture technology is transforming movement, assessment, and recovery. Imagine getting instant AI-driven insights without any wearables on your patient. That's right, no ping pong balls needed. Just pure, accurate data. Perfect for boosting athletic performance, pinpointing imbalances, and refining rehab. Top professionals worldwide trust KinetiSense to maximize productivity and results. Check out our partner page to learn more. Experience the revolution in movement. Welcome to Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More, the podcast that gives you a viewpoint in sports medicine that can't be found anywhere else. I'm your host, Eli Halleck, and we have a fantastic show ahead of us today. So, let's get started. Welcome to Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More. Today, we are talking California. We are talking laws. We're talking hot topics because, well, it's that time of the year. Football season is upon us. Fall sports are starting. We don't know what time we're starting. We don't know what time we're ending. It's that time of life again. And with us today, we have two special guests to discuss all the different topics we have, which run the gamut today. We're going to have a fun episode. First off, I'd like to welcome Sarah Goebel, the California Athletic Trainers Association Secretary. Hi, Sarah. How you doing?
Doing good. Got my kids to school, made it back on time.
Woohoo. And real quick, if you want to let everybody know your position, where you're at, what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm up in the North Bay in the San Francisco area. So Santa Rosa in particular, I'm at Sonoma Academy. I've been working in the high school setting since 2011, which is hard to say these days, and never looked back. So, and busy life with work and two kids.
Oh, yes. I remember those days. Still got two kids. Yeah, they're older. And then El Jefe herself, our president of the California Athletic Trainer Association, we'd like to welcome Christina Scher. How are you doing, Christina?
Good morning, Eli. Thank you for having me on this morning. I'm doing well here in San Diego, California. I also am a secondary school athletic trainer, so I am really feeling it this time of year. I'm at Sage Creek High School in Carlsbad. I've been in the high school setting for a little over 21 years down here in San Diego, so we're up and running and ready to go.
I gotcha. You're 21 years. Yeah. This is the beginning of my 29th, and you can tell by the gray in my goatee. So, yeah, it's all good. Don't worry. It's still
That's why
fun.
I just gave a year and let the people do the math.
Smart move, smart move. So, we've got some interesting topics today. We've been discussing through different colleagues and friends in the profession over the last few weeks, if not month or two. And we're just going to hit some topics that are of interest, especially in California right now. And whoever wants to jump in, go right ahead. But we're going to start off. There's a new bill that just is going to, I believe, a committee in California, AB 1703, scheduled for consideration by the Senate Appropriations Committee. It's an osteopathic manipulative treatment. And the big comment, the big quote, the therapeutic application of manually guided forces to alleviate somatic dysfunction is being defined. Now, the California Athletic Trainers Association, I mean, we're always looking at what's going on in the state, and there were some athletic trainers that were concerned on how it might or might not affect us. So I'm going to jump, I think, over to Ms. Scher and see what's the CATA think about that, or what do we have an opinion or?
We always have an opinion. Well, I do anyway. Let me just start off by saying, we're just kind of watching the bill right now. It doesn't look like it's going to impact us. What the bill looks like it's designed to do in reading the language is to actually update their own scope of practice to make it more unanimous through multiple states. right now is no opposition from physical therapists or chiropractors or anything of the sort. So it looks like the DOs are just trying to update their own practice act, if you will. So we're really not involved or concerned, but we are watching it because like bills tend to change and things like that. But I would say right now, we're just watching it like we would any other bill that would have to do with healthcare.
I think the
All
only
right then.
thing I'll add to what Christina said is just to give a little history when we mean we're watching it. CATA has a lobbyist and we have our governmental affairs chair. Those two working together keep an eye on all the bills entering the circuit. So this one was on our radar. We were aware of it. And like Christina said, right now, the language, it's really just widening their scope of practice and not restricting others.
Obviously, we want to give a shout out to our governmental affair committee chair.
Woo-hoo.
If you'd like to state his name for the record there, Miss Chair, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Matt Keano, who is also a secondary school AT and working on his doctorate of athletic training at the same time, as well as our governmental affairs and having regular meetings with our lobbyists that Sarah mentioned in keeping track of all the bills and all the things government for the California Athletic Trainers Association. So shout out to him. And he's a hardworking dad with some littles at home too. So we appreciate him and his wife for allowing him to spend time working with us.
That's the
So
key right there. That is the
shout out
key.
to her.
Yeah, definite shout out to her for the allowing, because when the boss allows, it can happen. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
don't happen. All right. Well, I think that's all we got to say about AB 1703 then. Let's move on. The next one I'd say, some of the things that have been popping up, and a lot of people have questions. We've seen some, at least in my era, and granted, I'm old, definite changes in national and district conventions. And we started the CATA convention, 12, 14 years ago. I forget what we're at
About
this point.
14 or 15 years ago.
That was fun to start. I remember being there when Mike West pitched it and thinking, oh my God, that's a lot of work, but it's been fun. I love going to it myself. But a lot of people are wondering, how can it evolve? Is it more of a recruitment, marketing opportunity? I know ours has grown dramatically at California Athletic Trainers Association just in the last few years. It's really blossomed, I think. And I just would really like to hear both of your opinions on this convention as a recruitment tool or marketing opportunity, or just how the roles of the conventions might be changing in the future.
I might take this one on. I have been involved with the CATA symposium since the number 2 when I took over registration, and we had 100 people, 99 registrants. Most were students at that time, and now we're over 400, mostly certified, just with the change in the dynamic of the student program. Shout out to our symposium committee and our chair, Tom Abdenauer. That committee works so hard in making sure that we're bringing content that is diverse, hits all areas, whether it's, the industrial, high school, collegiate, they really have a difficult task. And then also with promotion of, any EDI or mental health topics that need to be addressed, social determinants of health. So they really do hit the mark. The thing that I have a hard time with, and I guess this may be myself because I'm old school and I was quote unquote raised that yes, you go to these meetings, you support your state meetings, you support your district meetings, and you try to get to nationals. And let's be real, nationals is always the furthest point away from California that it could possibly be. And for me personally, I'm tapped out after districts because it goes, it's so quick. So I truly believe that yes, the point of these conventions that we go are continuing education. It is clinical education for us to get our CEUs to improve our skill set, to maybe explore something new that maybe we can or cannot, implement, but just to see what is new in the profession. The other part of that is yes, networking. And I really do enjoy going to CATA and seeing my locals, my California locals, even though California is a very large state and spread out. seeing my peeps, right? Then going to districts and seeing even more peeps. And if you make it to nationals, then you get to see even more peeps. So yes, there is a large networking component to that. I think there's kind of a balance here. Like people are like, well, we need to recruit and whatever, but that's not what the purpose of these conferences are. The purpose is to get your continuing education. And we're trying to do it. Yes, we can do it through Zoom. If you don't want to go, you don't want to go. But people love the networking, the hands-on, the labs, things that you can't get from Zoom. So I think that's where we try and focus. And then people also want to know, what am I getting for my dollar? Because sometimes these things aren't cheap to attend. So how many CEUs am I getting? So if you start taking away from the clinical part and go for the social part or the marketing part or the promotional part, that does not follow under the BOC continuing education domain. So now you're paying money for things that you aren't going to be able to use if you're choosing to do the CEU reporting and not the Pathfinder. So it's really challenging to meet both. I think somehow the CATA has worked magic. Our event is over 2 days. Most state conferences are 1 day or half of a day. Ours is a day and a half to 2 days. We try and offer labs and hands-on, and we have killed it with our vendors and sponsors. We've added in podcasts. We're trying where'd that come from?
Interesting.
We are adding in something new for 2027. Not going to spill it, but it's going to be kind of interesting. It's going to be a tester for maybe how we do things in 2028. And again, just trying to change how we attract the younger profession, how we keep people engaged, not only educationally, but socially, without pulling from the education to be social. And as far as the marketing and getting people interested in the profession, Eli, you run a top-notch event every year, probably 2 or 3 times a year, and I only get to one of them. But that's where the engagement comes, is where are we reaching out to our high school programs, it's not ROP anymore. What is it?
CTE.
CTE programs.
Some ROP, but still mostly
Yeah.
CTE nowadays.
And those programs are coming more and more to fruition. And Eli, you've got people from out of state coming to your competition, and man, these kids are so excited. So if you're a certified athletic trainer and you want to feel the energy and the excitement again of these kids who are just totally nerding out over all things anatomy and athletic training, go to this event, because it is honestly, I just felt so proud leaving there. And that's where our next generation is. And Eli, you've done a great job. And anytime somebody says, brings in, we need to bring in high school students, we need to bring engagement, I'm like, have them contact Eli. Even if it's grad students who want to network with high school students and really teach them about the profession, that's an area we can grow. But that doesn't grow in the symposiums where it's supposed to be a continuing education event. I think we can grow the opportunities to educate people in athletic training. I think we can grow that outside of the conference. The conference needs to be where we can get our continuing eds, where we can learn new things. I mean, I'm a secondary school AT. I am never going to be suturing a kid on the sideline. But did I take the suturing lab? I sure did.
Oh, yes,
to
definitely.
See it and have fun with it. So that's where I got that opportunity to do that. And honestly, if I'm, a veteran athletic trainer or seasoned athletic trainer, I'm not going to want to go to an event that's a bunch of high school kids running around or recruitment, because what am I professionally getting from that I can gain and take back? And a lot of people who try and get reimbursement for those conferences, I have to show what the content is, the programming, and to show that it's relevant to my employment. So there's many different facets of changing the dynamic of the conferences. Now, I cannot speak for the NATA conference because I do not sit on that committee that runs that. I do not know what their thoughts or their goals are. WADA, I have very little input as, the state president on what they do. I'm aware of some of the things because that's not my role. CATA, I somehow cannot get my foot out of the symposium because it's been my baby, for so
For a
long.
long time. Yep.
But also in hearing how things change with the younger generation, I have to be open-minded to how we change our structure, but without losing its original focus or intent. Why do we have the event? Why does NATA have the event? Why does SWATA have the event? So if the why is to provide the continuing education opportunities, lab opportunities, things like that for certified, then the marketing doesn't, and the recruitment doesn't really need to be there. And I think they get, I think it was brought up too with all the vendors. The vendors have a choice. And yes, those companies have budgets that they can spend on those things. And that's where they do get a lot of meet and greet. And I don't know about you guys, but I like hands-on. If I'm going to buy something, especially something very expensive, I want to see it. I want to touch it. I want to know.
I want to play with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
totally.
so these conferences give that opportunity, or even speak to the rep. You can speak to the rep of a company and then find out that Henry Schein, sells it. But the rep's there and I get to see it and talk to the rep and learn more about the product before I go to Henry Schein to buy it. So it's kind of a harmonious relationship there as well. But I think that's where we get engaged with new products or things that are big, the Stay Crafty lady. The first year we had her at CHEA, a group of students were like, oh my God, the Stay Crafty lady's here. And they were so excited. So I was so glad that we could bring her on. She's also a California grad and, lives in California, all that kind of stuff. So
The minute I saw she moved to California, I was like, hey, so.
she's actually a San Diego State grad too. She's an
Yeah,
alum.
but she wasn't in California. She's only
Yeah.
been back a few years. So I was like, as soon as she's
Her-
back in the state, I was like, now you're ours.
Yeah, she has a military spouse. So many reasons to support her, but it was great to have her and bring that engagement to the members who are attending. So again, what is the purpose? Before we go changing what we're doing, we have to ask what our purpose is and go from there. And yeah, we can kind of restructure a little bit, which we're having to do because with the poster presentation, it's not really lining up anymore with the graduate programs, things like that. So what do we do different but still engage our master students? It's really a difficult balance. And I have a hard time for people who question stuff like that, but don't sit on committees or don't take the time to get to know. Same thing with governmental affairs. It's really easy to criticize outside looking in, but unless you've sat on a committee and really saw the work, the volunteer work that people with full-time jobs do on the side, you might have a better appreciation of what goes in behind the scenes and the thought and the care. And it is a beast on, GAC and the symposium committees. So I would encourage anybody, whether it's state, district, or national level, they're always looking for people to help and sit on these things. So that's the best way to learn. And don't think that, I haven't been doing this long enough, or, I wouldn't even know. You have to learn at some point. You jump in. And I jumped in with both feet. I was voluntold, like about 90% of all of us. And here I am still going. But that's the best way to kind of see and, maybe bring your ideas forward or see what's behind the scenes look like, because it's a lot of hard work. And I commend our symposium committee on their hard work and trying to keep up with the Joneses or ahead of the Joneses. And I think we've done a great job with that. I think we're the only conference that has podcasts at our symposium.
Well, that's fantastic. I've got to agree with you on that. That's way to go.
And it's integrating. So we're integrating two different types of media, if you will. And we're doing well with our event. I'm really excited for Park 55 in San Francisco because we get an entire floor just to us. And
that's exciting.
Yes, the opportunities are endless. It's a smaller vendor space, but hey, I think that'll make us more marketable with the vendors who really want to be there and really want to support California athletic trainers and really want to work with California athletic trainers. So we're excited to go back up to NorCal. The content is going to be great. We have, oh my gosh, I wish I could steal it, but I can't because nothing's set in stone yet.
Not yet.
So,
can't do that yet. Nope.
Yes, I will just say make sure that you're watching for the tentative agenda to come out because we've got some great ideas and some planning. And like I said, it's kind of like the first year we're going to try it and then we'll bring it back down to Anaheim in 28. But we're really excited for that. And then we'll see where it goes and what opportunities. But questioning the format is hard when you have to understand the purpose and the why. And then, people are going for CEUs, let's be honest, but they're also going to hang out at maybe the socials afterwards and see people that they don't like. Sarah and I wouldn't see each other in person if it wasn't for things like this. So it's things like that that allow us to come together as a profession, because we are a networking profession. It is about who you know, hence Eli's email of mine that he got from someone that he knows. I'm like, wait, how'd you get that? So
We'll be talking about that a little later.
yeah,
So
yeah. So
yeah.
it's all, we get that. But unless you're what do you call it, a clinical or program director that's encouraging your students to attend these things, encouraging your students to get involved. Because if you're not allowing them to volunteer and get involved and attend these events, you're limiting them, because they can't meet their future employer. They can't network with someone who might be able to network them with the future employer and or be a recommendation. So if
Or have
you
my
are,
husband buy them a drink at the social in the bar. He did that one year. He got real excited.
Hey,
or like,
it's important to engage them. It
But
is.
it
It doesn't
is. It's
matter
like,
what level
and
they are.
we win stuff at a raffle, and I'm like, I don't need this. Here, student, you have it.
Go right
There's
ahead.
so many opportunities for students there. So I really, really reach out to the clinical directors and the program directors that if you're gatekeeping your students, you're doing a huge disservice to them and their future in athletic training.
yeah.
Please, 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 please encourage them to be involved, to volunteer, to attend these events, and to network with athletic trainers. I really make it a point to remember students who have the courage to come up and introduce themselves to me, to talk to me, to, really put their hand up and say, I'll do it, I'll do it. And those are the kids that I'm going to remember when they're certified and they're applying for a job. I'm like, yes, and
But they're not kids, so you can't call them kids.
They're all kids.
Well,
yeah,
I'm just old, so everybody's a kid compared to me. But yeah, I would have to
that's
agree.
my relevance there.
But I
Yeah.
mean, I came from out of state as a graduate student in California. I knew nobody. I had no network. I remember going to FWADA as like a little baby grad. Like I think it was once I was into my job, but like I still didn't know anyone. I was in a high school by myself. And my grad assistant role I hardly saw my classmates. So even those connections and everybody dispersed. And it wasn't until I got involved with CATA that I built a network and made the connections that I have, and it grew into it. Because when you're solo, or if you're in a setting where you work with one other athletic trainer and like you're not from this state, so you weren't raised and being taught by Kai and going to the local area schools, like I knew no one. I just would I remember at FWADA just hanging out in my hotel room a lot because I am not the
Oh,
person.
that's a
Well, but I'm
bummer.
not the person that's bold. I like once I know you, I'll talk a lot, but like if I don't know anybody in the room, I'm
None of
just
us
gonna get
talk
my
a lot.
food
What are
to
you talking about?
go and I'm gonna go to my room. So, but it was getting involved in this that allowed me to meet more people and then makes these events. Like I look forward to going to CATA and going to FWADA and getting to see people that I've gotten to know throughout my career now. And it makes a difference. And like, thank God my program didn't keep us from getting involved, encouraged us to go to Hit the Hill, encouraged us, to sit on committees or ask about how we could volunteer. So I really hope program directors out there can see that and understand that. And while, yes, for those of us working in families and kids, and it is a lot of work on top of our jobs, for students, they're there to get involved and learn and to meet people. And we understand their students and that they have clinical rotations, that they have exams to study for, assignments to complete. We were all there at one point, and we're not here to put all the workload on them. We're here to help them learn and get their opinion as the new young folks on the block, since we're not them anymore, except for I'm still 24, you
Hmm.
know, like, and learn what they want. They're a different generation. They have
Yeah,
different wants and needs. And the only way we're going to learn that as, a managing board is having them in the room.
I agree. And
I
that's one of the
yeah.
reason, I've been a preceptor for several years with Cal State Northridge and now University of Laverne. And as Christina can attest to, and a little shout out to last year's Cassandra Swenson, who was voluntold to join in and assist and help. And she did not want to. But again, she was voluntold as an MSAT student. No, you're going to become involved. She loved it. She was engaged. She had a great time at the CATA conference and was just surprised at how much work went into everything. So we have another former student who was voluntold to apply for a position with the CATA. Oh, geez, now I forget which committee because it just rolled in. It was the PR committee or revenue committee, and now it just got rolled into something else. And he's going to be working with that committee. But now we're engaging the younger generation that has different wants, different needs, different ideas, so we can get them involved and like to your comment, Christina, evolve our profession and our professional events. So everybody feels like it's personal and it's part of them and it's interesting to go to and they want to go. I'll be honest, I love getting my CEUs. I want to see my buddies at the bar. Did I say that? I hope my doctor didn't hear that part. But yeah, that's where I want to be.
You didn't say
I
you were
want to be.
drinking at the bar. You're just at the bar.
Thank you. Yes, good point. I'll make sure he hears that part. That's the best part. You know, shaking hands, giving hugs, catching up, sitting there and just seeing what's going on. Because when we're working, we ain't got the time to do that.
And
Mhm.
I'll echo Sarah. I moved down here after graduating grad school, and I knew no one. You know, I knew one person, Robbie Bowers, who knows everybody, and he voluntold me, and now I just feel like I've always been from California. So it is a networking, like just to get involved. And again, I was like, Robbie, I don't think like I'm talking to, oh my God, I'm talking to Mike West, the president. Like, I can't do this. Oh, like I don't know how to be a leader. I don't know how to do any of this. You
It's
do
just
it.
Mike West, no big deal.
Right. You do, and it comes in, and with the leadership in front of me, they guide you, they teach you, and that's the only way we really learn are from those in front of us. And so, without
Amen.
really putting your foot in the door or your hand out or being pushed through the door by others, this is how we get here. And like Sarah said, I knew no one. I knew no one. But now, you know, it seems I tend to know more people than I know that I know. So, and California's a big state, but this is where we look at these events to circle back on the networking part, the getting to know, the finding out what Sarah does at her high school or Eli does at his high school, or what's going on in these different areas, and how can we do and be better ourselves.
Mhm. I had my
Love it.
first moment of someone introducing themselves to me. I went to so San Francisco had the Super Bowl last year, and I went to their 1 day event for sports medicine professionals. And I had someone there come up to me who knew me from the Facebook group. And I panicked because I was like, oh my God, is this somebody I should know? And then they let me know I didn't know them. So I felt better. But I was like, oh my God, I had a
That's
fan.
so cool. But it's
But
fun to know. It's fun to know we're
yeah.
making an impact by doing that.
Yeah, and I just
So,
remember starting off in the high school setting and not California is freaking confusing when it comes to high school sports. I hail from Indiana where we keep it simple.
oh,
Um,
nothing simple here.
some
Yeah.
might say simple, stupid, but simple. So to help out, new grads or people new to the high school setting and like learning the nuance that, it's not just what does CIF say, it's well, what section are you in? It's having that group. I started it before I even got involved in CATA because I was like, you know what? I need to find other high school ATs that I don't know. And it's been fun
Yeah.
to watch it grow and get to meet people through that.
Yeah.
And it's how I got voluntold into CATA secondary school chairs. So
Sucker. Anyway, all right. Before we shift gears, I want to say thank you for the comments about the competition and the Intuit Dome events, Christina. That was kind of you. That's something we love to do up here and really get kids engaged in healthcare and just hopefully they go into sports medicine. But competition, this is going to be our 26th year, and then geez, and then the Staples Center, well, no longer Staples Center, the Intuit Dome event for high school students. That's going to be our 16th as well. So it's fun. The energy is just so positive to see everybody so engaged. It just kind of lifts your spirits and gets you re-energized to do what we do. So thank you. And you saw me perk up when you say that. It's fun. It's
It
really
is.
fun to see all these people engaged in what could be their future. So
And Eli, you know me, I don't sugarcoat. I keep it real. So I'm not trying to be nice. I'm keeping it very real that
uh,
this is a very real event and it is phenomenal.
I
So
appreciate that.
um
Thank you.
kudos
And
to
yes,
you.
I know you don't sugarcoat things. So, and I appreciate that. Elevate your knowledge, ignite your curiosity, and compete with the best minds at events hosted by the American Academic Competition Institute. AACI's sports medicine competitions feature practical exercises, challenging quizzes, specialty tests, and keynote speakers that foster knowledge and social engagement in healthcare and sports medicine. Go to aacitest.org for more information on upcoming regional and national competitions. Sign up for the ultimate intellectual showdown. So one of the big topics right now, and we got two coming up that I really want to hit, is athletic training companies. We have a lot of professionals, a lot of colleagues that have branched out, created their own kind of backdrops and own companies, whether they're LLCs or whatever, and they're doing contract work. And we're seeing it evolve into a real competitive field, which when you do that, it's got to come with competitive rates to get people interested. So I just wanted to hear what both of you think about what's been going on really in our state. We've got some unique opportunities up and down the coast, up and down Central California, up and down San Joaquin Valley. And with that, because of where we live, per diem status is a little different in our state than many others. So would love to hear you go on blogs, you go on other podcasts, you go on other magazines or information centers, and you get just a wide array of information. But again, we're a unique state. Would love to hear just your thoughts and ideas about how this transition in healthcare to so many different companies taking over contracts for different schools or different events, and which is great for us because as a professional, hey, I've got my own company, I can make my own hours. But then you got to pay the people that work for you. So, Sarah, maybe start with
Yeah.
you.
I used to grind with the contract work as a new grad and starting off to supplement my income and pay off those student loans. So I've always been a big fan of it. And I remember when the CATA released their first recommendation, for a rate and like seeing that and having that and being able to take it to groups or also just having perspective on those that really weren't paying well. I mean, and I get it. I took some very low paying thing. I think the NVCA volleyball might have been my lowest one, but with that, you could supplement with charging for taping, which was one of the few ones. And I know there's great ones up in our area now. I don't do as much contract work. I've got little kids, and so those are mainly on the weekends and to take that time away. I think, outside of just like the weekend work with club sports, which is where we see it a lot, the fact that these companies are also giving high schools another option to get an athletic trainer on board and on staff is huge. I'm a big believer in once a high school has one of us and you give them a little bit of a taste, they're going to want more. And so it can lead to a bigger, fuller, full-time job. I mean, my own position now is a result of that. So it's setting these standards, making sure. I remember I was part of the group that worked on these rates where they are now. And I remember bringing it to the board and saying, like, look, guys, one, this hasn't been updated and we are like, this is nominal now. And two, this state is so vast and different in cost of living. I mean, it's nuts. And like, and especially once we got into the data and looked at it, and I mean, we looked at every single county because that's how we divide up our regions is by county. So we went county by county and looked at the different cost of living and what that rate would look like, did our multiplication math to figure out that rate and finding that average for each region. And to give that tool out to athletic trainers personally to use, to give it to those who own the PRN companies that are hiring ATs to use to negotiate contracts with high schools or club sport teams. I've heard nothing but positive things up here. I've seen it. I've worked with Marin General, and just last fall, Amric, little shout out to Amric, who oversees hiring for Marin FC, sent out an email with their schedule and what the rate was. And I think it was less than 2 hours later, Amric followed up and was like, I hear you guys. Okay, let me take this rate information back to them and see what they can do. And it came back, and I think it went from 60 an hour up to 80 an hour. And all of a sudden, all the jobs, the weekends he had listed were booked. I just booked
Amazing.
weekend.
A good rate gets you employees. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to get weekends this year and he only got me one of the 3 weekends I requested. Someone else swooped them before me. And I was like, well, they must not have a husband to negotiate with on this. Flex Performance. So I started doing work for them because their jobs came across, and the rates were fantastic. It was in Santa Rosa, which for me is huge. There's not often a lot in my direct area, so I'm not having to pay gas at $87 an hour. When I was in Florida sitting in a meeting, I got a text asking if I could cover 8 to 10-year-old soccer at $90 an hour for 12 hours, and supplies would be
You
reimbursed.
have to pay me more to watch that kind of soccer. I mean, come on now.
Oh, I got someone to take it and they were like, I'm nervous. I haven't done that age. I'm like, look, it's a lot of ice and boo-boos. Very few real injuries. So you just got to get
We
them
used
through
to
the ice.
we used to say they're owies. We'll take care of your owie. Don't worry.
So as a mom of two young kids, my new phrase I now use is it a scary or an ouchie?
Ooh, I might use that at the high school level. I like that.
I have used it at the high school level. I had a catcher in a collision. I'm like, okay, is it a scary or an ouchie? He's like, scary. I'm like, okay, cool, cool. We're good. We're good. And in talking with Luke, who owns Flex Performance, with a couple other ATs, I remember when we sent out the update, he was like, we're no longer accepting contracts. Any new contracts from this point forward have to meet the minimum, or we're not doing business with them. And they move on. And the support his company adds, I mean, how many, no one can see us, but like raise your hand, how many PRN events have you gone out and worked? And like, there's no ice. You have to bring your own stuff. You have to bring your own table, pop up. I went and worked a weekend for them. They provided me a pop up, an AED. They had a kit there if I wanted to use their stuff. They reimbursed my supplies. They paid my mileage. They paid my hotel because I worked a full weekend.
And
And I
who
got
was
the
that?
minimum rate in Sacramento. So it was like, I'm going to take time away from my family to go work those and make some extra side fun money. And then if we get down to the nitty-gritty, so these are companies and hiring weekends. They're also putting athletic trainers into high schools. Marin General won't sign a contract that isn't for a full-time athletic trainer. If you want part-time, they say sorry. We're only hiring full-time. So having these companies go to bat for us on the ground level and making sure these jobs are meeting that is awesome. And a lot of that's coming from these per diem recommendations. And when you set that standard and stick by it, people change because they need you in those schools. And then I'm the lone one on this call up in the northern part of the state. And so I'm in the North Coast section. And we're unique in that we have a medical provider program. So as soon as we get to section playoffs, I get to make extra money working my own games. I can also go pick up other local playoff games. Now, does the rate currently meet our minimum? No, but most of us on that list work at a high school in the section and we're double dipping. So we're getting paid by our site and then we're also getting paid for a playoff game to cover both teams. And the North Coast section makes sure those so you have to be a certified athletic trainer, an EMT, or a physician to be in their program. You have to provide your certification annually. You also have to provide your own liability insurance. So I make back the cost of my liability insurance working 2 playoff volleyball games. I'm covered. And so that factor, and they took our, per diem recommendation and rates that had been set since I started working in the North Coast section for 10 years, all of a sudden went up $10 and then the next year another $10. So it's not just these, the PRN companies that are using it or athletic trainers going out and negotiating with clubs that are hiring. It's North Coast section has used it to raise the rates of ATs they're paying or
And I gotta
doctors.
say, the CATA, by coming out with that kind of general standard here, the per diem, gives us more negotiating opportunities, whether
Mhm.
it's the company or individually, because it's a suggested rate. It's not a mandatory rate. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Here's
Mhm.
what we're suggesting. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, yeah, it's a suggestion. It's a starting point of, we've laid the groundwork, looked at salary surveys, what, the NATA has put out, also looked at cost of living. what has gone into the cost of your education, what goes in annually to your supplies, to your liability insurance, and getting paid for your expertise. We're experts within our field, and you deserve to be paid for that expertise in an appropriate
You're
manner.
being paid for your healthcare knowledge and your clinical application of that. Wouldn't you agree
Mhm.
with that, Christina?
Absolutely. And that's one thing that by doing this, we wanted to give athletic trainers the tools. And on our website, we have those tools listed. We have the data there. There is not a magic formula. And I think that's what people try and look for. What's the magic formula? How did you come up with these numbers? There isn't one, but we have done the best that we can to do the research of the areas. And it used to be one blanket state recommendation, and now it's broken down into regions, which I recently had to drive from San Diego through California going north, and just the cost of gas from one end to the other was obscene. I'm like, we're the same freaking state. What do you mean I'm paying $2 more in the north? So again, what people not from California don't understand that is this is a very different state. The way we operate, the way that north and south and central and coastal are all very different. The CAT is really trying to support all the athletic trainers, in the different areas the best that we can. And yes, this is a per diem rate. It is a recommended rate. It is not an employment. A lot of people think it's an employment rate, and it's not. It's a 1099, your per diem rate. And I really want to give hats off to the PRN companies that have really worked to meet that rate, because that speaks volumes. When other companies come and say, well, we can't, pay that. And I'm like, yes, you can. When you're negotiating your contract with these clubs, with these programs, this is where you start. The fact that your services as a company, whether it be the contract negotiations or your own liability insurance as a company, that should not come out of the athletic trainer's pocket. That's part of doing business. That's where your rate to the provider, the club or whatever is fluctuated. You shouldn't fluctuate it based on what you're paying the athletic trainer for their goods and services, their knowledge, their skill set. And I think that's one thing that I try to advocate is when the companies come at me, and they have for this rate, and I will say, I'm looking out for our profession. Like you, Sarah, I do take
Yep.
jobs that aren't met by the per diem rate, but that's my choice. I am not going to ask another colleague to do that, but I'm also not going to advocate or support an event that doesn't meet that per diem rate, because I want to encourage proper compensation for our profession. And that's where it comes from. And our goal, our overall goal is to help athletic trainers, make a living outside of the living that we're not really making. Because let's be real, especially those of us in the secondary school setting, or even maybe just want to work something a little different, or have some times on the weekends and want to do something a little different. I enjoy working my CIF section playoff. A little bit of money extra is great. So we're supporting each other. And as far as the per diem companies, we're trying to give the per diem companies a guide on what those per diem rates should be for them to start with, and then they go from there. It shouldn't be the other way around. And that's what I have a hard time with, whether you're doing supply, and it doesn't include supplies. It doesn't include, travel. It doesn't include these extra things. It is your base pay. So I think that's where I really try and emphasize and support what we've done as a CATA, and I think it's worked very well. I do not know if other states have implemented anything. I am not worried about if other states have implemented anything, because to be honest, I care what we're implementing here. And if another state wants to come and ask me, how did you do that? I'm going to say, oh yeah, I'd love to help you. Here's Sarah's number. But I really,
Pass the buck.
Send
Sorry.
them my
No.
way. I think I've said it, and there's a giant secondary school Facebook group, and people have asked, and
Yeah.
I'm like, we created like happy to chat with you about it. Like, create it in
Yeah.
your state, give it or pay. And I know one of the things that has been said too with it, it's like, oh, instead of this, you should have a salary minimum. Well, that gets even more nuanced, because
That's
then
really
you're bringing
sticky.
in benefits and
Yes.
Yeah,
in the area you're
20%
in
right
and
there.
what the district is at. And so instead, what I would say is educate yourself on what are ATs being paid. Hopefully you're an NATA member and you can access that survey, and it gives you a little bit of information, but then just go do a Google search, look up a district and what their recent job postings were. There's one up here in the area here. I could pull it up. it has the hourly rate on it. And to give you some ground, talk to ATs. I'll happily tell you, like administration. And they had a job posting for an AT and she sent it to me. She's like, hey, if you know anyone, could you share it? And my first response back to her was like, hey, look, your salary's too low. Even if I share it, it's not going to help. Like what you've got posted here, and and especially in our area, all of our Santa Rosa City schools have ATs with fantastic salaries right now. It took them a hot minute to get there. They got, I don't understand public schools. I will say I've always been in the private school settings. I understand that more. But the way that they built out the job when they first added it, they were locked in at the salary. And eventually the ATs went away and they couldn't refill them. They got out of it, raised that salary up. I think the most recent one, it was between 85 to 107 was the salary range. And so I send that to them. I'm like, this is what you're a private school. This is what the local public schools are posting. And they're going through budget cuts. So it's not that they're sitting on stacks of cash, but they've made it a priority and having someone in there and retaining that person. So for those that want that salary minimum, I encourage you to come to CATA and network, talk to us, learn more about the salaries in your area and what it looks like and how to negotiate those. It is part of the process and learning as you get into this field. And even once you're in it, it's scary to go have those money talks with the powers that be. We all need jobs. At least I do. So we haven't won the lottery yet. I didn't marry up that much. So that's
We'll
I
a
let them
will
change.
know
I
that.
say,
didn't marry for
yeah.
money.
I will say, to Sarah's point, that's one thing in San Diego that we've really tried to do. We have many various districts of different sizes, different makeups, different areas of San Diego. And we've really pulled together to help each other approach our districts for reclassification, rewriting our job description. And it is a process working with your unions or not working with your unions, because not all unions are created equal. But one thing I'm really going to hit hard here is data. Data, data, data. You just can't go in and say, well, this school does this and this school does that, or you can and you compile it. But what are your numbers looking like? How many kids are you seeing? How many sports do you have compared to the comparison? And one thing the districts down here like to do is, well, what is this district doing? Well, what is this district doing? So as soon as you say, well, this district and this district just hired 2 full times for all their high schools at this pay rate, why are we dropping, and then their ears kind of perk up because nobody likes to be outshined or, they're keeping up with the Joneses. So we really have created a network down here, and we actually utilize Google Drive, where we have a shared drive for a lot of this data. We use the NATA white paper. The salary survey, it helped here and there a little bit, but when I first took that to my principal at PUSD and he shared it with the, people at be there, like, are you kidding me? Like, they had no idea. So it goes with that concept of you don't know what you don't know. But they are educators. They need data. So you have to collect that. And what Sarah is right on, like, talk to people in the area because they want to know what programs or schools are doing. So that's where you're really going to be able to show that information. And year after year, we kept numbers at my last school for 3 years. And even after we got our second athletic trainer, just to watch our numbers grow, that if somebody were to ask, it's like, oh yeah, this position is totally justified. You can't cut it. Look at all the kids that we're now seeing and treating and able to cover more events and travel and do this stuff. It is about data collection, and we are a profession of data and science. So I really need to push that into our brains, that's what we also need to be doing when we're networking and talking, is like, okay, give me the job descriptions. We pulled job descriptions, and that's what our district ended up doing, was pulling job descriptions from the competing districts in the area, not even competing, but just to see what other schools are doing that have recently updated. So that's where I'm going to kind of leave on that with that topic,
Yeah.
Eli.
And that's going to bring me right into the next topic I really want to talk to. So, love that. Thank you so much. Data, 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 and not CATA. We're not talking Delaware with the DATA. We're talking California Athletic Trainers Association. Actually, we're talking the NATA right now. We're talking FWATA. We're talking any district, any state. Data is king. I was on the phone with a friend of mine yesterday colleague not too far, somewhere in between San Diego and, say, Los Angeles. And he sent me a screenshot of something and asked me my opinion. And I'm going to be honest, he didn't expect my opinion, I don't think. And John, if I'm wrong, let me know. We'll have fun talking later. But with that in mind, we need to talk about how do they call them again? Student
Student
trainer
aides,
aides. Please correct me on one more time,
High
Sarah.
school, high school student aid.
high
There we go.
school student
Thank
aides.
you, Christina. So at St. Francis High School, again, everybody, I've been there forever. We have sports medicine students, and that's what I call them. Because no offense, guys, but you're not always aiding me. You're in my way. But that's why I don't call them aides. I call them my sports med students. I love them. They're great kids.
Eli, have you
Yes.
ever timed, you have football, correct?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Have you, and I'm guessing they're always there, but have you ever thought about timing how quickly you could clean up the football field solo at the end of the night versus all of your aides cleaning up your football field at the end
Prior
of
to
the
12 months ago, it would be really fast. At this point, they might beat me. So,
night?
but that's a side
That's
story.
that's one that hits in my head where I
Oh
remember
yeah.
standing on the sideline and watching that golf cart being loaded, and I'm like, oh my God,
I
guys,
could
I
do
want
it
to
so
go
much
home.
faster, so much faster. But let's talk data. So, data is king in so many ways, especially when we're talking about professions, what we do, who we are, and the use of these high school students as clinicians. First off, as I told my buddy, they're minors, they're under 18, they barely have any education. Granted, most of us are giving them that education and trying to prime them up and get them interested in healthcare. You can't trust them as a clinician. They don't have the clinical skill set, they don't have the analytical skills to sit down and figure out what's going on. Now, can a few of them be just incredibly smart and be able to regurgitate some information that we've given them or they've read? Of course. However, should we leave another, again, minor? These students we're taking care of at my school are minors. Should we leave the healthcare of a minor in the hands of another minor? God, no. They're not certified. They're not licensed. They're not anything. They're my students and I love them. And they are fantastic with helping me on the sidelines get equipment, get set up, and observe, and hopefully inspire them to go into healthcare. But we are opening up a can of worms. And I know I'm going to make a few of my colleagues irate, and that's fine. You are opening up a liability can of worms when you let your student go away on a game by themselves and care for others. So, right now, the average nationwide average on medical malpractice payouts at the high school level, $450,000 a case. Now, with that in mind, how many athletic trainers can you hire for that? Why not use data on your side as an athletic trainer to get that assistant athletic trainer at your school? And when you look at $450,000 a case, I don't make that much a year. So, hey, you get one athletic trainer and you're able to decrease that chance of that lawsuit. That's fantastic. And I know I'm preaching to the choir now, but I would love to hear your opinions on using athletic training, excuse me, I don't even say it right. Help me out there again one more
Student
time.
aides.
Thank you. Student aides at the high school level instead of working your butt off using data to prove why we need another athletic trainer on site.
Can I go first?
Sure.
I know we're all chomping at the bit on this one. Go for it.
So I
Hot
no
button.
longer have student aides. And part the class, I now teach a very small elective class that only meets twice a week and a very small school. And I also don't have football. And no offense to all my other sports out there, but it's just not as interesting for them. It's just not. It's a lot of hurry up and wait, which is what a lot of our job is. But let's be honest, what's going to really intrigue them is when they get to see what quote unquote the good stuff, which just doesn't happen as often when you don't have football. But when I did have student aides, that was their role to aid. It helped with field setup, field tear down, maybe grabbing an ice bag for a kid, help me keep tables clean, check kids in, do laundry somewhat efficiently. and also get to learn. And I think it's important to remember, some may say, like, well, but they got to learn by getting their hands on it. It's like, not yet. Right now, they can just learn by you engaging them. So you're doing that knee evaluation. Not only are they watching you take a medical history, you're explaining to them why you're asking certain things, why not asking other things. You're explaining to them what you're palpating, why you're palpating it, why you started there, why you didn't start there. They're going to get plenty out of that versus throwing hands on or taping kids. And we had a local high school. They no longer have an AT, and I don't know what their sports medicine program looks like now because I know they don't have an AT. But not only would they travel one student alone with the team to our site, but multiple. We'd have 4 to 6 showing up for a volleyball game. So now I think, you've already taken on that liability yourself by having these student aides do things that NATA even says recommends we not do. Now you're putting that liability on me. You're also putting liability onto the coach of that team that they're traveling with. And how is that fair? I mean, how often do we say we don't want coaches in our lane? Well, now you're giving a coach of a volleyball team responsibility of 6 students in addition to their own players in a game he's coaching. Yeah, it's such a sticky situation. It's always blown me away. When that first happened and I was a little baby AT and they showed up at my school and I was shell shocked. At that time, I had students, they never traveled to a game unless I was traveling to the game. And if I didn't travel,
Ditto.
they didn't travel.
Ditto.
I think rare occurrences, but usually the only time I let it occur was if it was a football player and going to a Thursday freshman football game was the only chance they were going to get to work a football game. And the other school had an athletic trainer. I talked to them ahead of time and they shadowed that AT just so that they could get on the sideline and observe.
Ditto.
And like,
Yeah.
but all those things set in place and questions asked, not just sending them and being like, hey, just go check in and see if they're cool with it. Yeah, it's just, I get it. You want to entice them in, you want to learn. I know in the public schools, they have, is it ROP or what the like
CTE, ROP. Yeah.
CTE, ROP, so they're in medical pathways and doing these things, but keep it in the classroom. It doesn't need to occur on a sideline.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. I mean, to be honest, I much rather am looking at what I did personally when I was struggling as a younger athletic trainer as they added more. And this is where it comes from, adding more and more responsibility, more teams, more game coverage, more hours, and being overwhelmed. And I got to the point where one of my colleagues looked at me, he's like, "You're burned out, dude. What's going on here? You need help." Well, school's telling me they can't afford it. Well, they can afford to add the teams, to add the coach, to pay for the facility, to pay for the equipment, to pay for this, to pay for that. You've got to prove by using data that they need another quote unquote coach. And that's not a coach, it's an athletic trainer because now you have all these additional hours. And I'm looking at the numbers. I mean, I had an increase of nearly 2,000. It was, excuse me, nearly 1,700. It was 1,680 hours. 1,680 hours increased just by game coverage. And I'm good, but I ain't that good. And as we were able to prove the data, we went from, and again, I never used students as clinicians, but those of us in the profession that does, they need to use this data to show why they need to hire an assistant. That's my opinion. Granted, I work, and a lot of people say, "Oh, you work at a school that has a lot of money." Yeah, but there's still a limit by a budget. You need to sit down and prove yourself. And to that respect, I think Christina was starting to hit on it a little bit. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to shut up.
I'm just going to say right before she goes, Eli, I'm at a school that cost a lot of money and they had a part-time game coverage only.
Thank you. Yeah.
And it took, I didn't have data because I didn't work for them, but I took my experience of the private school I was at, which was about double the size and the amount of work and effort that went into that, and was able to negotiate that to a full-time. So while yes, the data, and I agree, and use it if you have it or start collecting it, but also use your voice and stand your ground.
Amen. And now, Ms. President, we'd love to hear from you.
Oh man, so many notes. that I just wrote down. My brain's gonna explode. So Eli's talking about data, and CIF just put out some numbers. I don't know if anybody got a hold of that, and I know I sent it out to the same group that got the
Great data.
email
Great data, by the
they
way.
sent to Eli that shows the growth of high school sports. And I think there's an easy data selling point, which is why I sent it out to our entire high school group in San Diego. The other thing with that is we are one person, and that's what I had to prove in my last district. How many kids am I seeing? You want me to do this? Sorry, I can't, because you gave me 29 teams to take care of. You gave me 1,400 athletes and 700 of them in one season. There's no way I can do all this. Now, had I, have a student there taping these kids and covering stuff, then not only does that decrease my value and my worth, but it's also going to decrease the chance that I'm going to get a second person, because why would we hire another athletic trainer when you can just have students doing it? Because let's be real, they're not thinking about minors treating minors, because that's exactly what it is. And whether or not you think it's just a simple tape job, it's not a simple tape job. You can't just, we are taught that tape has a purpose. At least I was taught that tape has a purpose. You don't just apply it to apply it because somebody says I need tape. What is the purpose? What are you using it to support, to stabilize, to benefit that athlete? And these students aren't taught that. They aren't taught the, and maybe they are taught the anatomy and
They're
the
taught
human
the pattern. Let's go.
Yeah,
They're taught the pattern. Hey,
but
it
if
might help this anatomy, but they're taught the pattern.
right, you're taught the pattern, but if you say, hey, they have an MCL with this or a valgus, or, I'm using it, a valgus wrist, they're not going to know what that means and how you're doing it. So there is a purpose to what we're doing, every single part. And, whether or not my first aid, my high school student aides were all first aid, and it was their choice to get first aid and CPR trained, because then they could do more. That means they could do the owies and boo-boos, but only in my presence were they allowed to do the owies and the boo-boos, because they were first aid trained. Because guess who also is first aid trained and is not a minor? Your coaches. Your coaches, when they travel or they're with those kids on the field and you're not there, they're the ones who are ultimately responsible for that child, the owies and the boo-boos included. The coaches should be doing that. They do not have the education to oversee our high school student aides. And that really puts our high school student aides in a bad situation when they're with another adult who might choose to ask them to do that. And if I ever sent my high school aides without me, they were water only. I didn't even let them take their fanny pack, and there's things like that we really have to implement where our boundaries are. And if we're on the sideline and I'm on the sideline and a kid fixes an owie because they see I'm doing a concussion evaluation, they knew they had to report that owie to me immediately. It's things like that. It's the boundaries and the rules that you set that really teach them the profession and what's important about what we do. Because if that kid now gets an infection on their arm and has to go to the, have IVs and stuff, well, who initially looked at their owie? Who initially gave them the home care for that owie?
Who's on the hook?
Right. And I know it's an owie. I get it. But let's be real about these kids sharing clothes.
How many times have you had an athlete show back up the next morning? Sorry, I would say, how many times have you had an athlete show back up the next morning with the same thing on?
Hallelujah. Seen it every weekend.
Yep.
All the time.
Yep.
I'm like, you wore that all weekend? Gross. So it's stuff like that that falls on to us. And one thing I have used my high school student aides is they help with the EAPs. They help me with vacuum splinting. They help me, like, I'm down on the field. Hey, run upstairs into the storage, get this hinge brace, bring me 3 different sizes. They help me with inventory and organization, and they get really nerdy about it. They get to network with team docs. They get to network with our administrators on a whole different level, because let's be real, they do get some privileges when they, tend to be the students who are really dedicated and tend to be there. So there is so much they can get from this opportunity, even though you're not letting them tape and evaluate and do the things, the nit and gritty that we do. They are purposeful, and they love being able to, like Sarah said, see the good stuff, but just being able to get in there and assist you with, because you're holding the limb if you're going to vacuum splint. Who's helping you? The coaches? They have no clue, and they're deer in headlights. So your students, like, getting the vacuum splint, they practice this with you, all these things. They know where the ambulance needs to come in. sometimes I trust students more than the adults with that, but also I might be having the adult call the parent. I might be having the adult do calling the administrator where I need more help. So there is a purpose for our students, and a lot of my students have gone on to be athletic trainers, to be physical therapists, to be doctors, to be nurses. And so they've gained a valuable experience without me abusing the guidelines that are set by NATA, the recommendations set by NATA. And regardless on if you're an NATA member or not, you're still held to those by the BOC. And you can be audited or investigated for abuse of high school student aides. And with that, I would like you just to keep in mind, like, this is a minor treating minor. And if you're not there, then that falls on you because you've given them the somehow permission to do so, even though you didn't directly give them permission. My students strictly knew that if they did something without my knowledge or permission, that they were going to be in trouble. And so I think that's where we have to educate our students a little bit more. We have to educate our younger grads who are coming into these high school positions. And, you know, because when you're in college, you know, everybody does everything, you know, interns, high school programs, whatever, because you're adults and your patients are adults. These patients are not adults, they're minors, and your high school student aides are also minors. So it's a totally different setting that some of the new grads might not be aware of, or somebody who's new to the high school setting might not really be cognizant of. And, you know, when I first moved to the high school setting from the collegiate setting, I had a coach kind of point this out to me, you know, and he was a former athletic trainer. He got it. Unfortunately, he was involved with a lawsuit indirectly. So he got to see a lot of what comes through on those types of depositions. He's like, keep in mind, these are minors, you know, on minors. So you can't, this falls on you. It falls on you as a clinician. And 450,000 is cheap for a lawsuit. Now we're in the millions because they're going after everybody.
Oh,
so,
yes.
And if you think your district liability insurance is going to cover you, they're going to cover the district. They could give two shits about you. So I hope you have your own as well, because they're easy to throw anybody under the bus and they're easy to settle. So when you're making these decisions about what you're having high school student aides travel by themselves and putting it on the host athletic trainer, which is not their responsibility, or number two, allowing them to tape an injury. Oh, that looks good. Okay, so-and-so, you just tape them. No, that's your responsibility. You're the healthcare provider. You're the one that's getting paid to be there. That high school student is a high school learner. Okay,
Ooh,
not
I
a
like
clinician.
that. I like that.
So soapbox. And I've been at the high school level for so long, and I worked so hard in many different sites to try and get a high school program that follows the rules and the NATA guidelines. So when I see my colleagues, new and seasoned, abusing it, I can't. You know, I can't have high school students walking up to me and saying, "Hi, I'm the athletic trainer at so-and-so." I'm like, "No, you're not. You're a student." Or when I find out my students who travel to another school and I sent them with supplies saying, "Hey, you know, Eli, do you mind taping this kiddo? His bus left before I got there." And you're like, "Yeah, great." But then you let one of your high school students tape my kiddo? Furious. Like, you're talking like my head will explode. Okay, so there's a professionalism here. There's a reason that we need to have the data so that we can advocate. And if you're allowing high school kids to do our job because it's the only way you feel you can do your job, then you're doing our profession a disservice. Huge
Amen.
disservice.
Amen to that. We need to realize that too. Too many people, and I see it all the time, rely on those high school, and I'm going to use that high school learner to do a clinical evaluation, treatment. You can't do that. You need to take the data that you've compiled all these years and use it. Use it to get that assistant. Use
And
it to
like
get
I
the per
said,
diem.
yeah,
Use whatever.
even when you get the assistant, that learner still has a role. Like, you know, I might say, "Can you, you know, I teach them the ankle rehab. Can you help them with their ankle exercises?" But am I in the room? Yes. Am I listening to the conversation? Yes. Am I watching everything that's going on? Yes. So there is a difference. And what we can do, you have to use your imagination. And, you know, how can you keep that student engaged and involved without having them directly treating another patient? You know, or like, I have an owie or boo-boo, I'm just going to I'm going to watch them and supervise. Okay, what kind of tape would you use here? What is your angle of pull? Why are you choosing to use that or that? So I'm going to, maybe pop quiz them a little bit versus me just taking over everything. And I know it's hard because I'm a type A. I get it. I like to do, because I know I can do it 10 times faster. The field cleanup, right? We talked about that. But if I have the time, that's where I'm going to really try and engage them. Yes, this is my soapbox. I'm sorry.
It's
just
mine too. I'm right there with
where
you.
I
I'll
live.
talk this topic for hours.
Yes.
And as my colleague found out yesterday, when I dropped all this on him, I sat there going, oh no, and blah.
Yep.
But yeah, you and I, all three of us actually,
Yeah.
um,
I mean,
really
it's like, it's
agree.
similar to what I will say with like coaches and like following like concussion return play. I'm like, look, for you, coaching is extra to what you do. If you're a high school coach in most settings, like you got a full-time job, this is a side thing. This is my career.
This is
This
everything I
is
went to school
my
for.
family, like me supporting my family. And so if things go sideways and I can no longer do what I trained to do, like it doesn't just affect me, it affects my family. And it
Yeah.
goes much bigger than other things. And so that's where I'll end. And I will actually, one last thing I will say. So, like I said, my current students don't do any shadowing. We're just in the classroom 2 days a week. And I had one who changed his major after freshman year of college, decided to go Kines route, is considering PT, and he didn't even shadow. He just took a class.
It's amazing how many do that too. So
Mm-hmm.
it's fun. And well, I know we all have a busy day, and I've already kept you a little longer than I wanted because the three of us, we don't talk much, but when we talk, we talk. And, that's half the fun. But I appreciate everything you both have been doing throughout the last year and a half at your positions currently and in the past with the CATA locally, and just everything you're pouring into the profession right now is so important. And as the next generation steps up, you're really pointing them in the right direction. I want to thank you for both of that.
Couldn't
Thanks,
do it
Eli.
without your help too, Eli, in support of, other colleagues in the area, with your sports medicine high school program that you do, and then with the podcast and all your spare time as well. It really gives a different platform to reach different areas around. So
I
I
appreciate
think
that.
it's all encompassing, and we're all in it for a greater purpose and a greater reason. So I appreciate you too.
Yep. Thank you very much. You guys have a fantastic day and a fantastic week. Hopefully, nothing horrible happens and we all have a
Oh,
calm day for a change, right?
thanks, Eli. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. I'm
All right.
doing it right now.
2 days until school starts for me. We're almost there.
Woohoo! I got less than 24 hours. Let's get it rolling. From all of us at Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and more, thank you for being on the show and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Want to make sure you hear every episode? Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to our podcast. Don't forget to share our podcast with your colleagues, family, and friends. Your support will help more people find and enjoy our content. Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More is directed by Eli Halleck. It is produced by Gabriel Halleck. Our theme music is by Coma Studios via Pixabay. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the contributors. Want to know more about us? Visit us at wrapituppodcast.com. That's with one P, wrapituppodcast.com. Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More is a production of Halleck Consulting, LLC.